Heavy rains in Accra and the southern parts of the country on Friday, September 22, 2023, have resulted in serious flooding in parts of the capital. Photos and videos trending on social media show parts of the capital like Ashiaman, the Accra-Tema motorway area, Shishi and Medina have all been heavily flooded. The rain started around 2:45 p.m. local time on Friday and fell heavily for about 45 minutes straight before subsiding in intensity. The images shared on social media also show the heavy rains have wreaked property damage. For instance, the popular China Mall located at Ashiaman overhead got flooded. Also, on the Tema motorway road leading to the TT Brothers area, there has been severe flooding and drivers and pedestrians have been advised to take precautions and stay safe. Some of the videos show vehicles and kiosks submerged under heavy rains. There have so far not been reports of casualties. The Ghana Meteorological Agency, GMET, has indicated that parts of the country will experience rainstorms on Friday, September 22nd. The rainstorm expected in parts of the Greater Accra region will also be experienced in the central and western regions. This is according to Rafael Ose Bokai, a duty forecaster at the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Speaking to Onua FM in an interview, he said the rains should be expected in the afternoon. We are expecting a rainstorm this afternoon over Accra, the central and western regions. Let's say between 12 and 2 p.m. It should be here, so if we can keep the public informed earlier. Rafael Ose Bokai said. Already in the Greater Accra region, the weather has been cloudy in the past hour, signaling a rainfall. The general public is cautioned to stay indoors or find safety grounds. Ghana has a serious flood problem. Over about 50 years, 4 million people have been affected by floods, resulting in economic damage exceeding $780 million. At least one major flood disaster has occurred every year over the past 10 years. Floods are not uncommon in West Africa. Rainfall variability and land use changes have made them increasingly common throughout the region. In Ghana's urban areas, like Accra and Kumasi, floods are mostly triggered by seasonal rainfall combined with poor drainage, the dumping of waste into waterways, and the low elevation of settlements. The problem is Ghana's government currently reacts to the floods using coping strategies. These don't deal with the underlying risks, are expensive, and don't consider that floods will get worse. The government must take steps towards more proactive flood risk management. After every flood, the country's National Disaster Management Organization, along with the military, police, and other emergency personnel, is deployed for rescue and emergency relief. The government then repairs damaged infrastructure, clears waterways, and demolishes properties built close to drainage channels. The problem is this doesn't deal with the underlying causes of the floods, or prepare people for them. Money that could go towards future prevention is instead spent on perpetual cycles of recovery. These coping strategies will get more costly because the flood risk is set to get worse. The amount of rainfall classified as heavy is projected to increase between 2010 and 2050, with the wet seasons projected to get wetter and the dry seasons drier. This will be felt intensely in the urban areas as populations continue to grow. Already, about 40% of Accra is classified as highly prone to flooding. This will increase as, due to more building, less water will drain into the soil. The government needs to make the country more resilient and able to withstand the challenges posed by intense and frequent floods. Ghana participates in a variety of adaptation programs, like the Resilient Cities Network and the Africa Adaptation Program. But this hasn't translated into action. The government has also taken on projects to protect against floods, but these are focused on the coastal areas. For example, the Kita Sea Defense Project. The current Greater Accra Metropolitan Area Sanitation and Water Project is constructing drains and culverts in Accra. But this isn't a major part of the project. Much more needs to be done. Ghana must fully transition from coping strategies to proactive, long-term measures. These include structural flood protection measures, like storm drains or levees. These need to be constructed to protect all at-risk areas, and not just the coastal areas. Improve early warning systems to ensure timely flood risk alerts. This should include a 24-hour monitoring and warning service during peak rain seasons and an education program to help communities understand the risk, respect the warnings, and know how to respond. Social protection, like affordable social housing, will move more people out of informal settlements built in flood-prone zones. Strategies aimed at improving the natural environment, for example, creating riparian buffer zones that protect and expand wetlands so that vegetation slows and absorbs floodwaters. Encourage households to adapt and advise on actions they can take, like using more water-resistant building materials. Proper waste management. Ghana has a huge solid waste problem. Poor disposal of solid waste often leads to the blocking of drains and drainage systems, preventing floodwaters from flowing through. Moving homes and businesses out of flood-prone locations. They can choose to do this, or the government can facilitate it by buying out at-risk properties. Build new homes on elevated ground or foundations. Strict planning to avoid construction in flood-prone areas. Deal with spillage from dams by building canals that channel the water. These can be dammed and the water used for irrigation. The initial cost of adaptation measures will be expensive, but it will pay off. Research shows that for every $1 spent on flood risk reduction, it saves at least $4 to $9 otherwise spent in an emergency response when disaster occurs. The Netherlands is a classic example of a country that has taken flood risk adaptation seriously. A quarter of the country is below sea level and 60% of its people are in flood risk areas, but the measures it has taken have reduced the likelihood of major flooding. Ghana can take advantage of predictions and past experiences of floods to aggressively pursue flood risk adaptation. Failure to do this will increase flood disasters and social and economic disruptions.
You